Hello everyone and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll. Today we are privileged to be joined by Rav Yaakov Bender, Rosh of Yeshivah Darchei Torah in Far Rockaway. Thank you, Yeshivah, for joining us.
My pleasure.
A special Yashukayach because I know this might be a little out of the Yeshiva's comfort zone.
Okay, it's good.
So we appreciate.
I am for years ArtScroll. They ask, I do. Finished.
Well, we thank you very much.
Chizuk.
And I should mention right away that we are here primarily or initially to discuss the Rosh Yeshiva's new Sefer on Chumash that's going to be coming out shortly. ArtScroll is very excited, and I'm sure that readers will be very excited when they pick it up.
Yeah, they are the next, okay.
I've been zeichet to see some of it, and it's really phenomenal. So let's get into that first. How did this Sefer evolve? What is it based on? And give us a little insight into how the Sefer was compiled.
For years and years now, I give shmuz in the yeshiva. And I work on Chumash and Rashi a lot, and Bachrim, other people have asked me, why don't you write it down? So finally I decided I'm going to write. So I started writing Lashon Kodesh first, but that's a mammoth job for me. That's going to be very, very large. It's going to be a long time. So I figured in the meantime, let's put out something in English with the ideas that I like to push a little bit, the ideas of Musar and Yonim. I think come out Chumash. I think Chumash and Rashi is almost not a forgotten art, but if we realize what we can get out of Rashi, Shul Birnbaum, my Rebbe, he really, really taught us how to take apart a Rashi. Mm-hmm. And I find being Mavaseder, Chumash, and Rashi with the Rashis for the last many, many, many years, you find things that are diamonds. They're really gold. And that's what I like to try to do, Mitzvah Shem.
So I noticed that in a lot of the Rosh Yeshiva's shmuzin, they're peppered with stories from the Rosh Yeshiva's Rabbeim in the Mir Yeshiva, Reb Shmuel Birnbaum, Shmuel Brudny, Reb Hirsch Feldman, and others. And it's very unique because many of these people, I think Rebbe Yisvei as well, who the Rosh Yeshiva had a shaykhis with later on, many of these people are not necessarily covered in contemporary stories. Most people have stories about Reb Moshe and Rav Yaakov, a lot of typical stories. But a lot of these stories and anecdotes are things that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. I find the biggest when I give a shmuz, again, whatever is good, not good, whatever, when I give a shmuz, I find that when you use real stories that I know personally, it connects to the Bachram. When I speak of Shul Birnbaum, my Rebbe, Shul Brudny, when I speak of Mashkiach, Hirsch Feldman, whoever, Rebellia, when you speak about them and you're talking about yourself and your interaction with them, then you have what to connect with the Bachram. When you just tell stories from the past, it doesn't always work. Obviously, in a sefer like this, you're going to write all kinds of stories from before also, but I think real stories with real people that they could identify with, especially in Yeshiva, because they hear about these people from me all the time. Sure. So I think that works.
Now, the Rosh Yeshiva shmuzin, are they based on a style that the Rosh Yeshiva saw from someone else? Are they self-developed? Because there is definitely a unique style, and I'll bring it up, a tremendous emphasis on Ben Adam HaChavere. Tremendous, probably more than any other topic.
The idea of using a Rashi with Shul Birnbaum, he really always, Brudny also used Rashi all the time. They used Rashi all the time. But I think Midas is like my mother. I took my mother all the time. The Bracham laugh because remember I was very young. My father passed away, so my mother was tremendous dogish on midas, and it all of us, my siblings, we try to push it. So I think that's also with the amount of competitiveness that there is today in the yeshiva world, particularly. I think we can't forget midas and the shleimus. So we try very hard again. All yeshivas are trying to bring out the shleimus dikabacher. And without midas, the learning is there. The learning, what a dar. The amount of learning that's going on is incredible. But we have to push the idea of midas. I think it's very, very critical. And so my own style, somebody else's style, I don't know. I picked it up, and I think that's what should be.
When I was reading the Rosh Yeshiva's Divrei Torah on Chumash, what I thought of was a lot of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz's Torah. Did anyone ever mention that?
A little bit. I have read Reb Chaim Shmulevitz's. Obviously, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz's Torah fits the bill. He had a heart as big as the world. His heart was unbelievable, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. I have a story in there, for example, a phenomenal story of Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, which I don't know why it wasn't picked up on. I spoke to a Jew who heard it directly from someone who was at the Chasana. Now, that story is on Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. There's not a time for stories now, where we're speaking now, but I think
what is that particular story?
It's an amazing story. What happened was that Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was a survivor. He lost his entire mishpacha. And he went to Shanghai, and he was Yeshivah Shanghai, and he came to Israel. I believe in 1950, his oldest daughter, I think that was the year, got married to none other than Reb Nachum, the future Yeshiva of the Mir, Reb Nachum, a Goyin Olam. Right before the chuppah, this story, again, it teaches such volumes. Right before the chuppah, Reb Chaim and his Rebbetzin go over to the girl, their daughter. Now imagine his heart being full of, he's marrying off his first child after losing his entire family. He says to Abba and Ima, we're not walking you down to the chuppah. She says, why? He says, because your chassan is going down first. He's going to be standing under the chuppah without parents. Now Reb Nachman is doing it like, you call it a Welt Shidduch, he's marrying the Yeshiva's daughter. But he felt for him. Reb Moshe Finkel, Reb Eli Baruch's father, and his Rebbetzin walked down the Kala. In order not to hurt, when they came up to the chuppah, then they joined the chuppah over there. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, his heart was so big, yet he gave it up. That's midas. The fights that go on sometimes, who should walk down, father, mother, what goes on. I once came to a chasana. I came to a wedding, and I was first at another wedding first. I had to go to Talmud's wedding first, and I went to another wedding. I come in there at 10:30. I expected to come in after the meal, second day and starting. I walk in there, the chuppah is ending. I said, what's going on? Major fight. The Kala's parents were supposed to walk down together with their daughter. The other side demanded last second that it can't be. Why? Because their Messiah Kedushin, the husband Kedushin, insisted only father, mother. They wouldn't give it up. For an hour and a half, Rav Pam writes about it in the Sefer. He says, you're marrying off a kid, stop fighting. And what happened after the chuppah? Everybody left. People left the chasana. Chaim Shmulevitz says to his daughter, I'm not walking out. You know what I could teach people? Rav Pam writes about it. He writes about Ru Boy Oilam, what my children do. He's speaking about this particular thing he writes about. People fight over the famous story of Rav Yaakov Bender. They asked him why. He had 6 children. He says, 3 of them father, 3 of them father, mother. He says, why? That's good for me. But Chaim Shmulevitz, to bring out such a story on Midas, it could lessons for life.
Now, a lot of those lessons also came. I know that the Yeshiva, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was during the period after the Yeshiva's father was nifter, when you was able to spend time with Reb Shalom Shvadron.
Correct.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
What was the ashpah that he had?
Tremendous. I chased him because I was looking for something. I was learning in Torah Vodas. I went to Philadelphia. It was the only 4 weeks. My father went to came back to New York. Chaim Epstein told me I should stay with my mother, which I did. And then he came to Williamsburg for a Shabbos. We had Uncle Pinny used to come, Reb Pinchas Ackerman. He's also Reb Pesach Kron's uncle. So he stayed there in his house because of the Kron relationship. Agav, if you want to know what it means, you should read the Pesach Kron's first book, the introduction, pages 24 to 30. It says there exactly how Reb Shalom Shvadron hooked up with his father, Rav Ramzel Kron al Vashalom. So he came there for Shabbos. I felt something. I spoke Yiddish well. My parents only spoke Yiddish to us. So I hooked up with him, and then I just ran after him. My mother bought me a matana, this big Wallensack, a huge tape recorder. I followed him around, and I hooked up with him, and he called me uncle, and I felt like I was part of him. I found something. The year my father was nifta, I was looking for something, and I attached to him, and it was tremendous.
Was that a kasha that was maintained?
Kulei Midas. Oh, yeah. Whenever he came to America, Kulei Midas. I mean, Shalom was Kulei Midas. It was all about Midas. All about Midas. That helped a lot. It certainly molded my thinking. This Shabbos I was talking to a few people in Yeshiva, someone made a mistake because of Torah. Shalom Shvadron once gave a thing that the Torah says, the Torah says, I feel Kara La'aron Haran, you shouldn't correct about Kairei. Why? Because I'm on B'chei Rabbin. So we don't pass like that. I remember once he gave a shmuz about that. Tamar, the parashah we just read, but Tamar gave up everything. Why? She thought she's giving up Mashiach, and she saw all the tzaras of Klal Yisrael, and she gave it up. Why? Not to embarrass Yudah. He spoke about this topic. He brought it to life. Not to embarrass somebody. What it means not to embarrass somebody. And he spoke about that Shulchan Aruch, and I remember it. That had an effect for sure. Yeah, for sure.
This Sefer, I believe, is going to be Shavah L'chol Nefesh, in that seasoned Talmidei Chachamim will enjoy it.
Basically,
because even if they know the Torah, they may not know the story.
I hope they have better things to do with their time. Okay, but yeah.
But I think even if they know the Torah, they may not know the stories. And I think lay people and B'nai Torah of all ages will enjoy it.
I always felt, I want to say something interesting, Musa. I have the schus of giving a shmuz to the beis medrash and to the Masifta every single week. Because of Corona, I have to give in 2 separate rooms because it's too crowded, but I also teach the kindergarten once a week. Once a week, I teach the kindergarten. These 4-year-olds, how do you teach kindergarten? Because they understand, if you tell them the right story in the right angle, it's the beginning of their development. The Shleimbus, Aleph is about Emes, Gimel is Gimel Chasadim, Dal is their Cheret. So, of course, and the Mesperish is being on a different level altogether. But if you tell them a story about Shavas Aveda, hey, it was recently, right? Shavas Aveda, it's also Musar. It's also, and it's just because they're 4 years old, so what? This malacha of going through all the years of working on midas, it's a long, Everybody knows the famous word of Yisrael. It's easier. It's easier to finish Shas than to change one midah. I think to work on midas, it should be a cycle from, I don't want to darshan too much over here, but I tell the Rebbeim always in the Divrei Torah and the parashah, Gematriyos are very nice. The Goyans, a different world. The Goyans were Muslim, a different world, of course. Everyone licked up and the Sisrei Torah. But I'm always saying with the Narish Gematriyos, everybody's finding Gematria for Corona now. I don't know. What can I tell you? Corona is the English word. Finding Corona in the Torah. I don't hurt anybody's feelings, but teach them that Torah should be, they got to go home for Shabbos and tell over something that's going to change a midah, going to help us. Conversation by the table, what it means to have Torah to somebody else. We need to have good midas. The Divrei Torah and Shabbos should be those Divrei Torah, teaching children lessons. That's an avodah from grades nursery right through medrash.
Now, the Yeshiva has built a yeshiva with tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. I think it's well known for its high level of learning. Chashivim Magidei Shir. Would the Yeshiva say that what's unique about it is this component of an emphasis on Midas Tevis, Ben Adam HaChavera? Is that a fair assessment?
I think we're unique. I think a lot of yeshivas are like that, Baruch Hashem. But I think that when a person comes up and says, I want a shidduch for Darchei Torah Bacha, I feel good about that. Because they're talking about that. They're talking about that shleimus and that. So that's a good feeling. I think we try very hard, and the rest is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But it's interesting, we're talking about sensitivity. I saw in the Sefer an interesting anecdote, and it really resonated, that the Yeshiva, for years, when it would snow as a child, you get excited, and then when you take into account, I think the Yeshiva tells Talmidim now, take into account the fact that when it's snowing.
Interesting. So I said once in a while in the Shmuels, we haven't had snow in a couple of years. They're talking about a big snow coming up now, but we haven't really had major snowstorms. But when it does, and the kids are dancing in the aisles, won't be Shiva tomorrow, I remind them that if the one day it's ice, old people, we have a Talmud Yeshiva whose grandfather was a survivor of the Holocaust and walked outside and slipped on the ice and was nifta. So I don't tell over these stories, I don't tell two morose stories to the children, but they have to hear, you're excited. There are old people who won't go out of their houses for weeks because of this. Now they're frightened because of Corona, but they're not going out of their house. You're happy one day, think about the other one. So one Rebbe once said to me, Rebbe says to me, he didn't say the word party pooper, but he said, what are you doing? Come on. Right. So I was thrilled 2 years ago, Rebbetzin Brudny, Zechron Levrach, were just
lifted. Reb Shmuel's Rebbetzin.
Brudny's Rebbetzin, yeah. Rebelli Brudny's, Rabbi Brudny's, mother. So someone told me that there was in Bina magazine that interviewed her, a 9-page interview, so I got hold of a copy. I have the copy now still. And it said there that one time it started snowing very hard. And one of the children, I told the Rebellia, hey, maybe it was you. He said, nah, my sister, whatever. I don't know, it doesn't matter. And they were standing by the window and said, wow, no school tomorrow, no yeshiva tomorrow. And no less than a Shmuel Brudny says to him, but tomorrow it's turning into ice. Old people are going to have a very hard time with it. I felt good. I was vindicated. Because kids got to think about it. You're going out in the snow, you're happy? So what? You got to think. You have to think. Have fun in the snow. Have a day off, but at least think about the other person. I once spoke to a grandmother. I tried to call the older grandparents. They were all older, most of them, but she told me she hadn't gone out of the house that year. In 3 months, she couldn't go out. So, it's like for a woman, you got to think about it.
In the Yeshiva's, in the Yeshiva's Haggadah, which Baruch Hashem is very popular, I think the Yeshiva mentions about not walking ahead of older people. You see an old person shuffling along, respect mandates that as difficult as it is.
A very similar story. I remember which Rebbe it was. So I told him, I don't walk in front of an older person. What is he feeling now? He's 90 years old. He can't walk, and I'm running ahead of him. It's not fair. Now, maybe it's me now. When I go to Yeshiva now, the Berchim don't run ahead of me now because I'm coming. I'm all across me. I come to Yeshiva at 8:30 for Shachris, and I'm stuck behind somebody. I try not to walk behind them. So when Rebbe said again, where did you take this thing from? From Vuv. How do you know it's such a thing? So again, I said it's my hergish. Most people won't care. Some people do care. I was reading a biography of the Chazon Ish. There it was. Black Chazon Ish, a professor from Hebrew University, 1947. The Hebrew University was around already before the state was founded. The professor said, I got to hear so much about the Chazon Ish. I want to go see the Chazon Ish. And he went to see the Chazon Ish. He knocked on the door. They told him he just went for his daily walk. Which way did he go? This in this direction. Okay. He follows and he sees him. Chazon Ish, he figured it's somebody walking extremely slowly, like one tiny bit of steps. He figured it can't be that this is a walk. So he ran up to someone who was walking behind the Chazon Ish. He says, "Who's the Chazon Ish?" He says, "Right here." But he's taking a walk. What's pshat? What's pshat? He's walking so slowly. He says, "Don't you see in front of him there's a very, very old man. Chazon Ish will not pass him." The professor usually said, "I don't have to meet Chazon Ish anymore. I hear why he's the Chazon Ish." This is the story that brought down in the biography of the Chazon Ish. I know what. He turned around and went back. I'm sure he gets Shalom Aleichem with the Chazon Ish, whatever he did. So I think there's, again, sensitivity. There's every single day the sensitivity. And every word we say to somebody, you could hurt somebody forever without even knowing, inadvertently. You got to be conscious about it. You got to be sensitive to people. It'll come through.
There are segments of the Sefer that also address the current situation. I'll call it the current situation because it is continuing with the pandemic and the last 8-9 months. So I'd like to ask Yeshivah two things. First of all, what kind of hadracha is there for people? Okay. And I'm curious to hear from the Yeshivah, what has the Yeshivah seen as far as the fallout on youngsters, on even teenagers, on the Rabbeim, on our general chinuch system with this last 9-month period, and what are we going to see ahead, and how are we going to address it?
It's problematic. It's exploding now all over. Now our yeshiva alone, we had to close now, not per the city. The city didn't tell us. The Board of Health didn't tell us, but we have a doctor, Dr. Berman, a wonderful, wonderful person, and he suggested we should close the older grades, that's elementary school, grades 5 through 8, because there's a real issue now. So it's really going on very, very strongly. First of all, Tyra, in all my shmuz and the midas, the one thing that has to be the theme of it is talking to Yeshivah. We don't forget, obviously, limud Torah, so on and so forth. It was affected, especially the younger kids, when they came back this year. They fell behind in Kriya. We had to make now that every class should do a certain amount of working on Kriya because they fell back in Kriya. The person that were learning Ritzu from learning every day in the older grades, they got lost a little bit, and there are kids that just fell through the cracks. So there's been a real problem. The Rebbeim have been wonderful. I think the Rebbeim and the teachers have worked so hard to keep things being normal. But I think what we want to teach the children is that even though it's problematic times, what are you taking away from the pandemic? Because I tell them the following story. I think this is the most important part. They should realize that we learned Torah and we did our thing even in the most difficult of times. That's what should be.
Torah shelamadati ba'af.
That's it. They have to go out of this. That one day when they look back, I told them a story. When I was in Philadelphia, it was 4 weeks. Again, I was in Tervadas, Philadelphia, 4 weeks. My father was nifta suddenly. I remember like today, Rebellia and Shmuel accompanied me to Levaya. They didn't tell me to Levaya, but so I was there for a very, very short while. I was a little bit homesick, a bissel. My father's a Zechrona Livracha. In those years, phone calls were very, very expensive. Eretz Yisrael was $20. I remember we had to call our grandfather during that span. $20 for 3 minutes, you didn't hear well. Long distance, you didn't interrupt the long distance calls. Very expensive, 3 minutes, whatever you had. And my father wrote me letters. He wrote me 12 letters during that span, and I kept those letters. November 9th, I believe, was the day. 1965, there was a massive blackout in the Northeast. Everything was blacked out. Totally. My father was nifta November 15th, Miss Baram, was Chav Beis Cheshvan, and 15th. So this is a letter he wrote shortly before he was nifta, and he writes him, my entire Yankel, he wrote in Yiddish, the waist, yes, there is a big blackout in the Northeast. I'll say there's a big blackout in the Northeast, but I'm writing it anyways. I'm writing using a candle. And there's wax on the letter. It dripped down onto the letter, somehow got on, a little bit got onto the letter. And I have that letter. My memories of the blackout for the longest time, now it's already so many years ago already, my memories of the blackout is that my father wrote me a letter in the middle of the blackout. So I tell the boys, that's my memory. Your memory has to be that no matter what came my way, the curveball with the pandemic or went on, we have to realize that we made through, and that's what we have to go away with. I also talk to them kind of older people. We have a dar Baruch Hashem of grandparents. Remember that I was speaking about it in Yeshiva, that we grew up without grandparents. Our dar, baby boomers they call them, grew up without, they grew up without grandparents. I was like in my class, there were 10 children, there were 35 kids in the class, there were 10 grandparents. I had one because my father was an American, my grandmother had been nifta already, my other grandfather, who had then moved to Eretz Yisrael already. But so I had a grandfather, no one had grandparents. Today we have, you know what grandparents can give to children? There's so much grandparents can give, and I tell this to the grandparents all the time. You have so much chinuch you can give, and now that some of them are locked in their houses. It's cute, the pictures we see you standing on a car before Shabbos and waving. Think about your grandparents. You're complaining. When you have a problem, you're complaining. Think about your grandfather, your grandmother. They can't go out. The pachad people live with. There are people out there living in total pachad. I went to a wedding last night. with one of the parents of the chasna, went to the chasna, had a heart attack a few years ago. At his own wedding, he had to be his own child's wedding. He'd be so careful. That's part of sensitivity. We have to use the daily opportunities around us to speak about developing children's sensitivities. We're all busy with ourselves, right? Keep asking what's going to be the Chanukah this week. That's your problem. What about the old people who can't leave their houses? Yep, it's important. They want to dance. They want to have a good time. I'm not taking away any of the good times of children. I understand that. But think about these people who are living in terror. Mamish terror. People have died, unfortunately, till today. Yes, true, all people with conditions. So what? Think about it. I think our job should be to, develop midas. Children should go be thinking about, we overcame. We found ways. Why can't you write a letter to your grandfather, your grandmother? Letters are out of the windows. With the advent of emails, letters are gone. It's a treasure, we once had. Letters sell today. You know when they sell these letters? Hey, write a letter to your grandfather that I miss you. It'll have a much greater effect than speaking on the phone. Write a letter to your grandmother. I miss the chocolate chip cookies you made me. I want to get together. I want you to come to our Seder this year. Last year we missed you. Talk to the kids about it. Let the pandemic teach us midas. Think about the other guy. Yanim. You got to think of the other person. I think that should be the way we should go about the pandemic, I think.
Speaking about the pandemic, has the Yeshiva experienced, I know that the Yeshiva in general carries a tremendous oil on his shoulders financially with the Yeshiva. Has the Yeshiva experienced a specific challenge with regard to the pandemic on a financial end?
There's always advice. I have a wonderful parent buddy, really. Most of them, I'm always make certain decisions now, so people are upset about the decisions. That could be with people who generally had no problem. So, and I understand. It's their kid, their people, they want to talk about it. I have not found fundraising to be extraordinarily difficult. I think people are realizing we were very, very worried. I'm not saying tuition has fallen. Some people lost jobs, which is another tsar. People can't pay mortgages. That's a real tsar. There are people out there now who are suffering. But vis-a-vis the yeshiva, we're managing, working harder. Now working on our virtual dinner, whatever dinner it's going to be. Right. But we're working harder. Obviously, we're trying to bring in the dollars. But I don't see that inside the yeshiva. I see it more with the hurt with the parents. There are parents out there who lived a normal, healthy life, and suddenly they're unemployed. Remember the residual effects of this. I was thinking about it. I went to a chasna recently in New York. There's no valet parking anymore, right? Because are they passing the quota? People are not passing the quota. People. Right. So there's so many people who have lost jobs in parnassas. What about all the photographers and all the videographers? And what about all of the bands and music? They've lost so much parnassah. That's, I think, we should talk about the kids also. Everything could be chinuch. Every single thing that happens in our lives on a daily basis, and that's, by the way, the best chinuch. When you talk about daily things, daily occurrences with kids, so the pandemic has certainly had effects, but I think it's also a real wonderful, wonderful haven to teach them about more midas and more midas.
The Yeshiva is talking about yenim and thinking of others. We're all amazed by what Darchei Torah does in that realm, but
we have great PR.
I do want to talk about one specific program among many others that's amazing. The vocational program is something to
biggest bracha.
It's unbelievable. And then the Yeshiva has this program on Sunday where kids who are attending public school, I couldn't believe when I heard about this program. Yeah. They attend public school the rest of the year.
It's spectacular.
And the Yeshiva brings them in. Yeah. If you don't mind talking about that,
I don't mind. I think
unbelievable.
It can be done every borough, every neighborhood, every yeshiva. There are now yeshiva. Now we have at least 10, 12 kids coming every Sunday. There are 70 days approximately. The public schools are closed and we're open. We're talking about the holidays and the President's Weekend, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's 40 Sundays, right? So these kids are in public school all year, and the parents are so struggling to keep them Yiddish. When they're young, 4, 5, 6 years old, but who cares? When they're 10 years old, it gets even harder. 11
and why aren't these kids attending yeshiva
because
generally?
There's such a matzeva. We have certainly a very strong program for the disabled, kids who are shvach, and we have a vocational program in high school. By the way, many of the kids in the vocational program, that's where we teach them a trade. Right. Some of the greatest kids in the high school now, they want to learn plumbing, the contract, which is very good. It takes away the stigma. Mm-hmm. When you have the strongest kids in yeshiva doing carpentry, it's very good. So that's a wonderful thing, of course, teaching them. But there are certain kids that can't fit into any yeshiva, whatever the reasons are, without going into detail. Mm-hmm. Let's say the ADHD is so bad, let's say, or more than that, they're so weak, they need special programs.
Academic limitations.
Academically, so they have to be in public school, which is in every city across the country. So we invite them to come on Sunday and make friends. We put them in their child-appropriate age. Now, let's say the kid is a 10-year-old. We put him into the 5th grade. right? Even though he might not keep up with the 5th grade. The greatest part is the other kids. When you take in a shvacha kid, do you really believe it's only a favor for the shvacha kid? It's the biggest taiva for the regular kid. These kids understand. All we go, there's a kid coming here. We don't have to explain to the kids. He has to be, he's not in a regular yeshiva. I don't think we're public school. He's coming every Sundays, take care of him. They dance around him. By recess, they choose him into every game. We have kids coming from other boroughs for this program. It's easy for any yeshiva to do. It's a spectacular program. And they were waiting now in COVID. We were closed a few days. When could we bring the kids again? That was the only connection to Yiddish Kinderlich. Now, they have friends from the neighborhood, and they can play with them, and they know who they are. These are my classmates. I go to Darchei Torah, The kids don't say I go to public school anymore.
Really?
I go to Darchei Torah.
Wow.
70 days, a lot of days. It's wonderful. It's so easy to do. And the kids grow. When you have a handicapped kid, let's say, we have a kid in a wheelchair, and my son is pushing that kid. My son is growing. He's giving up his recess, take him out into the ball field. And so these kids also, it's so easy to help them, so easy to do for them, really.
This might be a sensitive question, and I'm sure the Yeshiva grapples with it. The Yeshiva and the Yeshiva in general are known for having this open door policy of being there for Klal Yisrael. But at the same time, if you do that too much, it starts diluting.
That's very hurtful to me sometimes. I get calls.
So how do you balance?
It's very, very hard. We have a regular yeshiva. We have a Mitzianim also. We have brachim that are sitting in Brisk, and the brachim that graduate yeshiva. Eventually, they become doctors. So if I completely, overwhelm the yeshiva with kids who are problematic, then other kids won't come, and they're right. We have to feed. We have advanced shurim also for kids. So we have to have a limit. Of course, we give our own children first. And we've taken a few from out of the community, but we have limits, a certain amount of us, so we shouldn't overwhelm the yeshiva. We have to keep taking care of the regular kids. That hurts sometimes. I have people told today that you didn't take my kid into yeshiva this year. 25 years ago, I had never forgave you for that. That hurts. I feel bad. Why are you yelling at me? Don't have tightness on me. Have tightness on the ones who don't take anybody in. I take in, but a limited amount. And I meet people sometimes, you didn't take on my kid. It's very hurtful to me. But I can't do it. It's not like, I think the success of the program is that the kids, no stigma, they're part of a so-called regular yeshiva. Making a program, you make a vocational program, a certain community came to me, they want to make a vocational program, but not in a yeshiva, chas v'shalom. You can't do it in a yeshiva because it'll mavaza the yeshiva, you can't do it. They want to make a separate building. I says, I'm finished with our meeting. I can't talk to you because you
defeats the purpose.
You will not be successful. Mayor Bloomberg once came to visit the yeshiva. So of course he took him to the vocational program. And when he was there, he told whoever was giving him the tour, or Dax that runs the program, he tells him, we don't have this program in the entire city of New York. All these kids are in special schools, and it doesn't work. He was the sprawl from it. So for us, you gotta envelop the kids in a regular yeshiva.
So mainstreaming is the key.
Of course. That's very, very important.
The Yeshiva has said on numerous occasions that the key in a yeshiva and a school is that it should be a place of simcha.
Correct.
I've heard that many times. What does it mean on a practical level? How do you infuse a yeshiva with simcha?
It means simply that what went on 50 years ago we shouldn't do. When we went to yeshiva as kids, most of us hated yeshiva. We didn't like yeshiva because, first of all, there was a lot of hitting going on in those days. A lot of the Rebbeim then, you have to understand, were Holocaust survivors, they were nervous people. It wasn't chashuv to become a Rebbe. Today, you have a first grade opening, 20 people apply.
Sure.
So it became much more chashuv. Yeshivas then, yelling and screaming, there was some wonderful Rebbeim then also. Memories of Rebbeim that I had that were wonderful. But today, we realize if you're not going to have a happy child, where the kid is enjoying, where the kid gets compliments, I don't like when Rebbe's use red pens to make an extra. Some kids that struggle. Just talk to the kid privately, explain to the kid why you get a good mark. The kid's got to be besimcha. I want the kids running into yeshiva in the morning, and they do. I have, of course, every Wednesday I do meet and greet. So I'm a big shot Rosh Yeshiva. So what? I stand there, the kids come into the yeshiva, and these days they come with masks off the buses. I don't even recognize half of them. But they run into yeshiva so happy and freilich with a shmeichel. We make certain occasions throughout the year. All kinds of Aschalas Gemara is made into a major operation. All yeshivas are doing that today. You see, you look in the yeshivas they've become a place of simcha. I think, I met a parent last night. He tells me, I'm going through my first crisis with a child. I said, this child is a great kid, whatever grade he's in. I said, what's the crisis? he's not keeping up. The sheer level is so high, so he can't keep up. I said, this is your crisis. This is your crisis, and your kid feels it then. If you're upset, he's not doing well, he's not understanding something, shurim, your kid has to think he's the best kid in America. And you and your wife have to make sure to tell the kid, you don't understand the shir, you don't understand the shir. So what? That's simcha. Well, I give out every test paper, grade 6 through 11, right? So I keep all the comments, wonderful, great, superb. I'll tell the kid privately a little bit, whatever, I'll tell the kid, you have to try not to embarrass the kid, chas v'shalom, right? So if a kid, you could tell him nicely, quietly, you could tell him, this is not a crisis. The crisis is, chas v'shalom, plenty of kids on the street, never. Plenty of kids out here on the street. That's a crisis. The kid doesn't understand shit, but if the parents are going to talk like that, the kid will become a bundle of nerves. We used to have a kid in yeshiva, and his brother was the exact same way. That used to go around to the Rebbe, if he got a 95 on a test. So the parent this year came to me about this. I said, I want to say something. I remember your oldest son had the same issue. 95 on a test. He'd scream, I need 100. I said, this year, the same kid with his younger brother, the same family. So I called the father and said, are you telling your kid if you don't get 100, you're not doing well? No, I'm not telling him. It's got to be you are, because the kid's worried. That's not going to make a sympathetic Talmud. That's going to make a robot. That's going to make a kid who doesn't like learning. He's being forced to learn. Religion must be enjoyable. At this age, certainly, there are achrayis when it comes to tefillah and vidui. There comes times, Yom Kippur, for davening, but you can't force feed religion. I remember once I had a parent came to me many years ago. What do I do with my child? I said, what's wrong with your child? He's playing with battery toys on Shabbos. I said, how old is he? 3 years old. Come on. You don't understand. He's going to hate Shabbos. Yeah. He's going to hate Shabbos. I heard recently wrote a book, 39 yes mitzvahs of Shabbos. If everything is no for a kid, he's going to hate Shabbos. Shabbos means coming to the table and seeing his mirrors and having a good time and enjoying yourself. That's what Shabbos means. If the kid is very young, with time you develop in him, they won't want to do a chas v'shalom yisurim on Shabbos. You got to be b'simcha. And you have to find everywhere, and the Rebbeim are really, Yeshivah, the Rebbeim, every one of them is one better than the other. Menalim are wonderful. They really are. It's very, very special. All over it's like that.
Yeah, the yeshivas are clearly better than ever.
Yeah,
I think the Rebbeim are the cream of the crop, better
today's
than ever.
Rebbeim and every yeshiva in America are wonderful. The simcha they
100%.
put in. I found that out. Some Rebbeim are spending their own money to buy them prizes and zachem. What does the Rebbe make already? Come on. What should go on? The Rebbe should make $200,000 a year. Pay the Rebbe the right salary that he deserves. But come on, the Rebbeim today in every yeshiva are wonderful, really wonderful.
But what do we do about, there is a percentage of, I think, boys more than girls who are not making it within the system, and whether they fall out at the beginning of Masifta or at the end of Masifta, wherever it happens, there's something about kids who are a little out of the box,
right.
who are not making it.
We need more David Tranks. That's what we need. More David Tranks. There are some people doing it. I think that it shouldn't happen that often. Number one is if the kid breeds success, a vocational program would help a kid like that dramatically. Most of the kids, I think, again, everybody has their own theories why kids go off the derech. Everybody has their own pet peeve. I remember when the Sandy happened, and our community was completely decimated to a large degree. So some Rav in some other borough got up and he said, you know why Far Rockaway at 5 days having a problem with this firm? Because they will never chabad this firm. I said, I didn't call him up. You're not God. You haven't decided yet. You don't know exactly why things happen. I don't know why things happen. There's really why kids go off, they don't go off. I can't say why. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. And parents hurt themselves. Everybody has their own sheetas why kids go off. One thing's for sure. If a kid is not successful in school, you're going to lose him. We have to find a way of making every kid feel successful in school. Find a way. And there are ways. Help the kids. It doesn't work, but you got to try very, very hard. And you got to carve them, make them feel good about themselves, and it'll help. But what do you do with the ones who are off already? I'm not involved in that field actually, but I try wherever I can to meet the brachim on the street. I go over to them. If I see a kid out there, lav dafka from Yeshiva, wherever he was, I say, Shalom Aleichem, how are you? They get scared, and I'm all, I haven't seen it in a long time. They get smoking on Shabbos. They vape today, which also is tzara. But you see them on Shabbos, you go over, Shalom Aleichem, how have you been, and talk to them. Show them that we don't hate you. I think we love you still. You're going through a crisis, but I'm always there for you. I tell this to Bachram all the time. A lot more girls than you think. A lot more girls than you think. There are a lot of issues with girls today also. And obviously I don't know as much shaykhs with them as with these. That's the first step in getting them back. When they feel people believe in them, that's too broad a topic to talk about in one interview over here. But we got to try to keep them in the fold, yeah.
any closing message, specifically chinuch related for parents, if the Yeshiva was able to address parents and give them chizuk in Gidul Banim?
Chinuch is hard. Gidul Banim is hard. They say Rav Hutner used to say, someone came to Rav Hutner and complained about his Tsar Gidul Banim. He told him the regular everyday things that he goes to. He says, that's not Tsar Gidul Banim. That's Tsar Banim. Kids are going to create problems. It's hard to be a mother. The mothers today, superheroes of Klal Yisrael. We found out. That's another thing that COVID taught us. We found out what our wives do, what our mothers do. We found that out. They do everything in the world. We, compared to them, us men, they do so much. We found out. We were all home. We saw what's going on in the house. The laundry and the cooking and the cleaning and the homework with kids. Homework should be banned, by the way. Homework should be banned. I have some homework in your yeshiva because I have to have homework because I got to be a regular yeshiva, but very little. Homework, whichever sadistic person created homework, were your kids? No, you have to chazer. In secular homework, come on. So people say we have to give them. It became now a measurement stick of the yeshiva. Your chashiv, the kids are busy.
Scholastically, right.
There are girls have it worse than boys, who are crying themselves to sleep at night. They can't keep up with the homework. Why are we doing this? Let kids enjoy life. The homework, I don't want to get into a long tirade about homework, but I don't understand homework. A little bit, Chazer, secular, Hebrew, I can't understand. But it's hard being a mother, being a father, but that's life. What do we have without our children? It's everything we have. And your children will turn out wonderful. They really will. Most children turn out wonderful. Shower them with love and affection. You know what? Not so bad spoiling kids. Some people are afraid to spoil kids. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You want your kids to love you. You want them to be happy and besimcha and freilich. And don't worry about it. And I say to the Rebbeim today, you guys, the Moras, are so wonderful today, really. So wonderful giving them to the kids. We shouldn't ever let a bump in the road hurt us. There are bumps. Every road has bumps. That's all. Our job is to overcome the bumps and move on.
Well, Mazel Tov on the release of the new Sefer.
Thank you very much.
For Klal Yisrael.
I appreciate it. Rav Yitzchak.
And thank you for the chizuk that
This is the man, by the
gives.
way, in the Ated. He has those beautiful, beautiful stories. In my family, the kids, the grandchildren, they all have to read your stuff first. It's really terrific. Really terrific. And I say again, now you were on ArtScroll, we have to be very grateful to them. What they've just, when I was a kid growing up, people have kindness, there was nothing to read. Kids read junk. Today, Baruch Hashem, you have a good novel coming out from ArtScroll, even for the kids now. And of course, the Torah part of it. I didn't talk about Torah today, a little midas. Without Torah, we have nothing, Rabbi said. We have nothing. Torah makes us special. And ArtScroll helps so much. So thank you for having me. Bracha v'atzlacha and kol tov.
Thank you so much.
Kol tov.